Star Trek, the next generation. You love throughout the nation. You're my favourite show. Was in every episode, you're lucky. You don't have to wait for buses. You just step into the transporter and off you boldly go. Mr. Wall's my favourite person.
We are the Org. Our mission is to assimilate Star Trek The Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and beer. Lots of beer.
Hello friend, and welcome to bOrgCast 7.4 with Peter and Anne-Marie.
Hello!
So, sadly, we start with more news of somebody from the world of Star Trek that's died. In this case, it was just a couple of days after Leonard Nimoy, just after we recorded the last bOrgCast, Harve Bennett passed away. A film and TV producer. He was producer behind $6 Million Man and Bionic Woman. And of course, we know him best from his work on Star Trek's 2 through to 5. He even appeared in Star Trek 5 as a Fleet Admiral. It was his idea to cover Khan in Star Trek 2 because he really liked Space Seed, so we've got him to thank for that.
Cool.
But I am very glad his Star Trek Academy idea never got off the ground. Whether it would have been worse than the reboot we got is another matter, but still didn't like the idea.
No. It would have been Beverly Hills Stardate 90210.
That was kind of the rumour that was going around at the time, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, shall we get stuck into Gambit then?
Yes, let's.
Has Captain Picard been murdered?
Was vaporized.
Or has he turned traitor?
I say kill him.
And when Riker uncovers the shocking truth,
I want this ship prepared for battle.
will the crew be led into an enemy trap?
Report to Enterprise. We are under attack down here.
The shields are down.
Next time on Star Trek The Next Generation.
Oh, that wasn't at all spoilery, was it?
Oh, I'm so glad that I watched the trailer after I watched the episode, because I didn't remember a bloody thing, and that's a fucking spoilerific bloody trailer that makes me want to kill people.
Has Captain Picard been murdered? Oh no, look, here he is. What?
I ended up sitting there thinking, well, okay, I know he hasn't been murdered, right, because I've seen all the way through to the end of Season 7 and Generations and shit, right? But I'm thinking, what is he playing at? Is he playing dead? Has he been captured? Because I didn't remember the episode.
Yep.
I didn't know what happened.
But this
So when they
just
suddenly
blows
said,
out the
has
water.
he turned traitor or whatever, it was just, I'm so glad I didn't watch that first. Plus, first time round, Season 7, last season, you could easily think that maybe this is him.
Yeah, it wasn't going to happen, but yeah, I suppose if it were, in the unlikely event of it happening, Season 7 was the most
going to be when
logical
it was
time.
going to happen, wasn't it? Yeah. So, no, it's just like, okay, give away what's happened and why.
It's not just that it gives away the fact that he's not been killed, as you say, because, I mean, we all knew he wasn't really.
Yeah.
But it's the fact it also then gives away the alternative, which
Yes,
obviously could be the case.
Yeah, where actually you could be thinking, gosh, is he nearly dead? Does he need medical treatment? Where's he gone?
Is he a captive? Oh no, he appears to be working alongside them, which is much more interesting, but given away.
Yeah, but you need the suspense.
Anyway, that's enough ranting at the trailer.
Sorry, I didn't like it. Can you tell?
Yes.
Okay. So you open in a bar.
Yay!
Yeah, bars are good. With lots of sort of vaguely similar tall ass-faced aliens with bad hair. Troy also has bad hair.
Has she?
She looks like she's in a Bonnie Tyler video.
She's not that bad, but yeah, whoever did the hair on this episode liked big hair, didn't they?
Yeah.
She's wearing a very fetching blue number, though. I quite like that.
I was just too distracted by the hair.
Oh, right. Yeah, I wasn't. I thought she looked sort of quite practical civvies that she was in
Yeah, but
for
the
undercovers.
hair.
But okay, get past that. The hair's going to get worse. So.
Oh, no, I know, it does. And basically Troy's flirting to get info. And you can tell by just the small expressions on her face that she is pretending to be attracted to this guy when she really isn't.
Well, it would hard to be very hard to be attracted to this particular barkeep. He's played by Stephen Lee, who we last saw way back in...
That's a snooker player.
No, not that Stephen Lee. This is the Stephen Lee who back in Season 2 played Chorgan in The Vengeance Factor, a.k.a. Cosplay Meatloaf.
Oh,
remember him?
Yes. The name and the episode, no, but cosplay Meatloaf, yes.
The look on his face when Troy makes the pass on him as well. It's like, ooh, I'm in here. Whee.
Oh, dear. So, yeah, That's it's a good scene to watch in the sense you can see that this is Troy using her empathic skills and the other skills she's picked up when she was on the Romulan ship.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of not nice to watch because he's not nice. And then you notice that Riker and Worf are there as well, also talking to people. And then you get another melted mouse.
Iridian. This one's called Uranic, which is an anagram of canary, because he squeals.
Ah.
They really tried hard on that name, didn't they?
Yeah.
He's played by Alan Outshawd, who was last seen in the previous season as Pommet in Starship Mine. He was one of the ones we didn't actually give a name because he had a very minor role. I think it was the first one. He got shot in the leg by Picard, if I remember rightly, with the crossbow.
Okay.
And Riker is wearing purple.
Is he? I don't
Yeah,
remember.
yeah, he was
I
wearing
was
purple.
too distracted by the melted mouse and all the bloody hair, to be honest. But I love this scene. You've got Worf has managed to get the melted mouse to talk, and the way he did it is he said that they were after this guy for impregnating Riker's sister.
Yes. Nice one, Worf.
You like it?
It's nicely played by Jonathan Frakes. Isn't
Yes.
it? It's like looking sideways, Worf. What did you tell him?
The what now? Yeah, I like it.
We also get our first mention of gold pressed latinum in Next Generation.
Yep, because it's already been mentioned by this point in Deep Space Nine.
Lots, yes.
A number of times, yes.
But then, Quick Draw Crusher strikes again.
Yeah, wearing a shower cap.
Yeah, that wasn't quite so obvious to me, but when you pointed it out, it's like, oh yes, I suppose it does look a bit like a shower cap. She does like to rock a hat.
Yeah. And then they're trying to get more information, and he's like, oh, the man was vaporised, thinking that because this guy was supposed to have impregnated Riker's sister, who supposedly is Crusher, that they'd be pleased with this information. But it's supposed to make you think that Picard is dead.
Mm-hmm.
End teaser.
Well, pretty damn good teaser.
So then you open with Riker doing the captain's log.
No. Really?
Sorry.
I think we've got this far into things without making that pun. Gah.
Oh, you must have made it earlier. You would.
No, I'm not sure I have it. It's just, that's such a hoary old cliche. Yeah.
Yeah, because we never do anything.
No,
cliches.
we'd never be no to do anything at all cliche,
No,
admittedly.
never.
Yeah, you're right, I must have done it.
Basically, Riker is saying that it was Picard's DNA on the bar wall. Dr. Crusher's confirmed it, so he's definitely dead. So you've got Riker is acting captain. You've got Troy arranging the memorial, which Riker is refusing to attend. And
Yeah, initially suggests that Crusher do the eulogy because she's known him longer,
which seems
which is
reasonable.
nice until you see the deleted scene that's slightly earlier than this, which was Crusher basically confirming that it was Picard that had died,
Yeah.
gone through the DNA, and he's really rotten to her. He's like, she
really-
clearly needs a hug, and he's just like,
yeah, she's clearly really upset and tearful, and he just he almost barges past her, doesn't he?
yeah, pretty much.
He's a fucktard.
Yeah. And unsurprisingly, Troy loses her shit with him.
But justifiably,
Yeah,
basically, she just calls him out on his selfishness.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have the monopoly on loss. It's a good scene. Troy's good in it.
And it's like, excuse me, you're effectively the captain now. You've got certain responsibilities.
Yeah. Grow the fuck up.
Again,
Where's Jellicoe?
This is why Riker shouldn't be made a captain. He's just like, 7 years he's been on this ship as first officer. He still hasn't got a clue.
No. What gets me, right, okay, is you have Admiral Chakotay, okay, he's got a call on subspace for Riker, and they've obviously told Starfleet or whatever. Does Admiral Chakotay say, Riker, you are clearly a fucktard, so we're going to bring Jellicoe in, like we did before, he's going to capture the Enterprise, and, then you'll be fine? No. He says, oh, I feel sorry for you, poor little Riker, ickle diddy doo da, you can go and do an investigation even though you're clearly unsuited. That's not intelligent.
Rather more helpful than he was in his appearance in Deep Space Nine in The Circle, where he just left Sisko in the ship, basically. It's like, yeah, we know the Kardashians are planning something, but just ignore that and leave. It's like, right.
So he's not even consistent. He's just
No.
a twat, isn't he, Admiral Chakotay?
He is, yes. We won't see him again.
Oh,
He
good.
probably got the sack after this.
Yeah, I would have thought so. So, then you have a scene between Riker and Melted Mouse.
Where he goes proper Judge Dredd on him.
Oh, he does.
You're doing time, creep.
Yeah, it's quite cool.
He threatens to send him to the Gulag or Repente,
Yes,
effectively.
it's just awesome. So manages to get out of him that the group of mercenaries were going to the Barata system. So they investigate, and Barata 3, there's some emissions coming from it, even though it's supposed to not be inhabited, but it's habitable, so, that could be a base that's been down and see what happens. They find the same damage as they did in the bar. So is it a recent fight? They're not sure, but they've definitely been here.
So the whole business about Riker says he's going to beam down, and Data says, well, as your first officer, I think actually you shouldn't, you're the captain now, you shouldn't be beaming down. And incredibly hypocritically, Riker says, I'm going anyway. Yeah, it's like, that's just, shit he's given Picard over the years for going down on away team missions.
I know. He's just twat. Oh, yeah, and when the away team beams down, you have the obligatory Riker puts his foot up on a rock and looks manly. I just wanted to punch him in the bollocks at that point.
I claim this planet in the name of my ego.
Oh, don't. So they see this dropped jug thing, so then they get attacked.
Yeah, that's quite. It comes out of nowhere, that really, doesn't it? Suddenly the yellow shirt shot. It's like, whoa, what's going on?
And then Geordi's like, we're under attack. But on the Enterprise, they say the comm system is being jammed, and the same jamming is affecting the transporters, which is logical.
Yeah, the ops officer, by the way, on the Enterprise is, because obviously Data's currently number one, so he can't be on ops, is someone called Ensign, I don't know how you pronounce this, Giusti or something. But anyway, she's played by Sabrina LaBeouf, who played Sandra Huxtable in The Cosby Show.
Right. Anyway, the culprits are a Romulan and Mullet.
They are the Mullet mercenaries.
They are. They beam Riker and the suddenly fixed pot away.
Yes, curious that, isn't it? We have the longest phaser fight in the show's history.
It is cool. Yeah. It is a good phaser fight.
Particularly when you consider all the explosions and damage were added later in post, because they weren't allowed to damage the location. They couldn't set up any squibs or anything, so it's all added stuff. And it's all very action-packed.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. So the Enterprise surmise that they must have a ship in orbit. They're able to see it. Having previously been shielded by the planet, so they go to pursue it, and then it's gone. So then you have a scene around the Ouchie table of Ouchie.
Hang on, let me talk about the spaceship.
Oh. Now it's time to get anal about spaceships. Woohoo!
Took a trip on the Gemini spacecraft. Thought about you.
Because we have seen this spaceship before. It was previously the Mirador Raider.
I was going to say, is it the Mirador?
Ah, there you are, you see. And it has this curious thing, the fact that they can see it through the view screen, but they can't pick it up on sensors. It's got kind of like a sensor cloak, which is quite a nice idea. So it isn't a full cloaking device.
No.
But it's something that makes it very hard to be spotted on sensors, which I quite like that idea.
Yeah. And particularly, they are specific about it being long-range sensors. Mm-hmm. I guess because if you've got short-range sensors, you can use your eyes, really.
Yeah, quite.
But it does mean it's then difficult to pursue. And it's an energy sheath. And then it's like, Worf is like, we can't just sit here and do nothing. And they're just like, that's exactly what we're going to do. And initially you're like, what? But then he says, we're going to search the planet for clues. And you think, actually, that makes sense, because then you might be able to predict where they're going to go next if you can understand their motivation and what they were there for. Mm-hmm. So it's logical. And then you meet the mulleted crew, and I'm afraid I just got earwormed. Have you seen the mullet man, the mullet man, the mullet man?
Yeah, so we're on the bridge of Baran's ship, which is a redress of the Enterprise battle bridge, with the most obvious giveaway being the view screen. They haven't changed much. For the rest of it, they have made quite a decent effort at making it look different. We've got Baran, who's in command of the Space Pirates. Played by the late Richard Lynch, who had parts in the original Battlestar Galactica series. And he was also in season 3 of the A-Team, so we got him to look forward to. We'll have to look out for him.
But will we recognise him without the mullet?
Well, there's a thought. But the A-Team, the 80s, he's still going to have the mullet, isn't he?
Yeah, that's true. He might not have much
I mean, he would be quite threatening if it wasn't for the fact he looked like fucking Lamal.
Yeah.
And he leads our mullet mercenaries. You're right, there's one that doesn't have a mullet who's
gloomy. He looks really sad.
Oh yeah, he's an extra, yes. He's sad because he doesn't share the mullet that his crew members have. Yeah. Also not sporting a mullet is Talera, who's played by... Do you recognise Talera, the Romulan?
I did, but I couldn't tell you where from.
Okay, this is Robin Curtis, a.k.a. Savick Mark II, from Star Trek 3 and 4. She also made an appearance in Babylon 5 as Ambassador Kalika in Deathwalker! Shackdot! Then we have Vacor, who's got more of a punky hairstyle than a mullet.
Yeah, but she's got strange ears.
Yes, she has.
And the hair's still wrong and quite up.
Mm-hmm. Recognise her?
No.
We saw it very recently in Deep Space Nine as Ty Kajada in The Passenger.
Yeah.
It's Caitlin Brown, a.k.a. Natoff,
Oh,
the first
okay.
Natoff from Babylon 5. And it's a very Natoff kind of role, isn't it? There's lots of anger in this one. She looks like an alien punk rocker. We don't know what species she is.
She's a Latoya, is she, do you think?
Yes, possibly. And then we have Narek, the engineer, who's a Boslik, like Jahil in Babel. And Rionoj, who looked very different, if you remember, from the start of Season 2, wasn't she?
She had purple hair.
Yes.
Okay. Back to the interesting things. Baran has a neural servo, pain receptor. Reminds me of, is it the most toys where Kivas Fajo has one to control people?
I'm not sure. Possibly. It's been a bit while now since we've seen that.
It's definitely something we've seen before in Next Gen, the concept, not necessarily that model.
Well, it's a bit of a sci-fi cliche.
Yeah, but I mean, in universe we've seen this before. This isn't
pain device.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Picard is alive, undercover, calling himself Galen, which makes sense because it's all to do with archaeology, that he would call himself Galen.
After his professor,
Yep.
From The Chase. And I like the way Picard plays Galen. He actually does a different voice.
Yeah.
And, Picard, Patrick Stewart, obviously, but, it's Picard playing a role, which is interesting. And he's doing a different voice, and his body language is different as well. It's quite cool.
Yes. So Riker's, you can tell, is initially really shocked to see him, but doesn't react, can tell, hang on, he's not being who he says he is, I've got to keep stum kind of thing. So Picard sets Riker up, talking about the Cardassian incident, says he's got a reputation for insubordination, and then arranges an engine malfunction for Riker to fix. It's clear that there's some sort of Romulan link. The ruins and the artefacts are all Romulan, and there was a Romulan with the mercenaries. Mm-hmm. So on the Enterprise, Data and Geordi are able to identify the next likely target, which is the Federation outpost on Caldor 2. Then I got distracted by the yellow uniforms not being the same.
Yes, the colour of the yellow uniforms aren't exactly the same. Presumably they've been washed a different number of times or something, and some of the colours faded.
Data's uniform, which is similar to Geordi's, I would describe as gold.
Mm-hmm.
Worf's I would describe as custard. I mean, it's really quite a marked difference between the two. And I don't know whether this is the first time I've spotted it, or whether Worf's uniform was different. Was it a new one or an old one? Or I'm not sure. But I think the difference that I spotted between Data and Geordi's uniforms were lighting effects. And they are effectively the same. Worf's is different. And I don't know why, but it bugged me because they put him in custard. Anyway, having got over my custard-related distraction, you have Picard has managed to engineer being alone with Riker, who's confined to quarters, and he explains that they've got a sort of linked weapon transporter thing where they can fire at something and beam it up at the same time. That's how they're nicking all the artefacts. Picard knows they're looking for a specific Romulan artefact because they're looking for a particular signature, and that's what Picard is doing. He's, having posed as a smuggler, having wanted to find out why the artefacts he'd gone to study weren't there. As soon as, posing as a smuggler, they've got him on the crew analysing the artefacts, looking for a particular signature, which they haven't yet found. And he says that he isn't getting on well with Baran, and so maybe they can do something if Riker becomes his friend. So then he says, so the best way is if you're my enemy. And so just as Baran's coming in, he properly punches Riker in the face. And Riker's look of shock is just awesome. I love it. And they're talking about Caldor 2, and obviously Picard is trying to stop them blowing up the small outpost that's there. So what he does is he says that he tried to nick artefacts from there before. They've got photon grenades, I think he says, rather than photon torpedoes. So it's more heavily defended than you might think. He knows because he's got prior experience. He says, why don't we use the Starfleet officer? We've got to talk through the defences. And then you have a scene where Picard is analysing these artefacts and the Romulan comes in. And there's an interesting conversation between them where she's like, you're clearly ripe for mutiny or whatever, and he's like, I don't care what I say or whatever, and you're just like, okay, she's sussing him out. Is she planning a mutiny? You're not really sure, but it's the sort of conversation that piques your interest about the internal politics of the mercenaries. And then they're at the outpost, so Riker tries telling him to drop the shields. It isn't working. So then Picard targets the shield generator. They manage to beam up 3 artefacts, but Moran says there's 2 more. And then the Enterprise turns up and asks them to stand down. And then Riker, as part of a ruse, what's clearly a ruse anyway, sends his old codes across. So he says, I can get their shields down with my codes. But he's sending old ones across, and Worf's like, they're old. And Data's like, yeah, Riker would know we've changed them. Data works out this is some sort of ruse, and he says, right, lower the shields. And Worf's like, what? He's like, no, lower the shields. Riker knows those codes shouldn't work. He sent them to us for a reason. So Worf drops the shields, and then Picard fires. Freeze frame to be continued.
Yeah, which is a great cliffhanger.
Awesome cliffhanger.
That's probably one of the best cliffhangers we've had for a very long while.
For a long while, yeah. I mean, it doesn't beat Best of Both Worlds.
No,
but it's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, and I like all the antagonism on Bran's ship.
Yep.
It feels like a pirate ship. And of course, Space Pirates was banned by Roddenberry. It was one of the concepts he said Star Trek shouldn't do. I guess because, again, it's people falling out and they don't do that in the future, apparently.
Oh, right.
So when the production team were talking about doing this episode, they tied a bandana around the bust of Gene Roddenberry on Berman's desk whilst discussing it so he couldn't hear it. Yes. And this was by design, something that was about looking at a more action-packed story than they'd done for a while.
Yeah.
Brad and Braga felt it was too campy, too Buck Rogers-like. But to be honest, we're about ready for something like this at this point in the season. It's not been the most stellar of starts to season 7.
To be honest, though, I mean, it's all these mullets. We are massive fans of 80s schlock.
Yeah.
It was always going to appeal to us. Yes. Let's be honest.
Lots of phaser fights, a nice bit of space battling, a nice ship. This is what Star Trek should be about more often. Not all the time, but more often.
Yeah.
So we certainly, as a part 1 anyway, excellent stuff.
Really enjoyed it, and I didn't remember it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing at all. I loved it.
Cool. Let's find out what Mr. Purry made of it.
Hello, Orgs. Purry here to talk about Chain of Command Part 1. This one's actually quite interesting. I found it quite an entertaining two-parter in general. Not maybe the deepest or most life-changing, but it was a lot of fun. So the gist of it is at the start of the episode, in what is quite a fun scene with apparently the whole bridge crew pretty much working undercover, apart from Data, because he'd stand out unlike, say, Worf, are all trying to find out what's happened to Picard. And it turns out at the end of it that he's dead. Now, obviously the episode transpires and Riker ends up with him and Picard's running with a crew of space pirates. I know we'll get the space pirates theme again. I was going to look up the lyrics to Alex Cooper's song Space Pirates and say yes, Picard joined a kill crazy crew from out of the blue, but I won't. Basically they go off and they're looking for certain artefacts and raiding archaeological sites. What I found interesting about it, for starters, Patrick Stewart is really enjoying playing the sort of space bastard, basically. He does actually do quite a good job of playing a uninterested rogue. It's a role I'm surprised he hasn't been given, because he really did it well, sort of the out for himself kind of thing. And of course, then he switches back into Picard. What did get me, and I think is in part 1, if I have got mixed up, do forgive me, but I think it's in part 1 that he says basically the reason he ended up pursuing said pirates and eventually ending up on their crew was because he went to an archaeological dig site and found it ransacked. Picard, finding out that some people had buggered up an archaeological site, left it a mess, decided rather than report it or maybe go back to his ship and ask to be able to take it as an investigation, he went off on his own to try and find out those people and presumably tell them that they were jolly impolite. God, don't mess up Picard's archaeological sites. Time team, beware. Be careful with your excavations, because you cock up that site and Picard will come after you. He will find you, and he will join your crew and eventually, appear to be dead. One of the things that was interesting that I did read was that while they liked the idea of people thinking Picard was dead at the beginning, they knew they couldn't stretch it out for an episode because people just wouldn't believe that they'd actually kill off a member of the main cast. Everyone would be waiting for the reveal of Picard's alive, though. Which is true, and that's why I quite like the fact that they actually get that out of the way pretty quickly. I did like some of the reactions to the crew for Picard being dead, particularly the scene between Riker and Troy, because they actually snap at each other. It's a little scripty soapy, but they seem angry at each other, and they actually seem like they're getting properly worked up, and I like that. I like it as a human response, that they're angry and they're annoyed. They're not sitting there going, well, we're dealing with this, this is them off duty. Yes, on duty they're professional, none of them are wailing around gnashing teeth. In fact, the only person who's a wee bit unprofessional is Worf, who's beginning to chafe under Data's specific command style. But yes, overall, I actually found it quite an enjoyable first part. The pirate ship, I only realised it since watching it, is the ship from Vortex, but it's quite a cool looking ship, and I like the idea of the stealth idea. It's got a coating on its hull that makes it harder. It's not a cloaking device, it's just very hard to pick up in sensors, and basically once they go to warp it's very hard to see. Also, we've got Robin Curtis and Natoth all in an episode. Robin Curtis, in fact, playing a Romulan. Which, is just basically, alright, so this is basically Romulan Savick, and indeed, I'm sure it was Expanded Universe or something that was deleted that Savick was half Romulan anyway, but that was quite interesting itself. So yeah, the only thing which actually falls a bit flat for me, and I remember when I watched this in the videos, it was actually rented from a video shop, and I think I had to wait a week or so for the next one to come in. I don't quite remember what the deal was with that. But I remember having that cliffhanger, and it seemed better to me at the time. Watching it now, the problem is that we do see Data working out that Riker's using command codes which he knows will be changed. So when we see that nacelle getting shot at, we kind of know it's a ruse. I can't quite work out how. I think possibly having Riker send his command codes and then them reporting the shields are dropping, and then having that, I think that would have worked better. Perhaps had a bit of ambiguity that the Enterprise is in danger, whereas this one you don't really feel the sense of danger. But yes, overall, entertaining romp and quite a lot of good fun. So I'll be back shortly to talk about Gambit Part 2. Until then, bye for now.
Bye for now.
Yeah, they do show their hand a bit with the cliffhanger, don't they? Unfortunately, that's true.
Could have done with a bit more ambiguity.
Yes, but it was still nicely dramatic, I thought.
Yeah, it was cool.
That scene with Riker and Troy kind of off-duty, snapping at each other, was definitely good, yeah.
And it very much post-Roddenberry.
Yeah.
You never would have seen that.
Nope.
With him alive.
And Patrick Stewart, Space Bastard. Yes, he's clearly having fun playing a slightly different role.
Yeah. Also, I really like the idea of, Picard doesn't report everything, Time Team beware. If you destroy an archaeological site, it'll come after you.
Fuck you, Baldrick. I'm gonna fuck you up. Time Team, for our foreign listeners, is an archaeology programme in the UK which features Blackadder's Tony Robinson as chief asker of questions and
presenter,
and it features some of the most shocking jumpers you'll ever see.
Oh yeah,
and some even worse hair than this does.
Yeah, that's true actually.
Okay, let's find out what Drew and Tracy made of this. You managed to make it to Tracy's birthday bash recently.
Yes, and it's her birthday today as we record.
Happy
birthday!
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
This is our feedback for Gambit Part 1. We just finished watching that, and I said to you, hold that till we got the mic out. And where was you?
I was like, what's going to happen? Yeah,
It's cliffhanger.
That's my starting point for the next episode. In this episode, Picard is dead.
Yeah, as far as you know at the beginning, yes.
Well, there is imbalance in the universe, if that is the case, isn't it? It's just, there's all kinds of wrong. I mean...
It's very difficult, isn't it, in this kind of thing? I mean, obviously, I can remember this episode well. I don't know if it's the first time you've seen it or whatever.
Yeah, it's the first time for me, yeah.
So you know he's not going to be dead.
Well, of course you know he's not going to be dead, but you still kind of think, why have they kind of killed him? What's going to happen? But then it kind of leads on to how I loved the emotion of Troy and Riker in this episode.
I did not like that. I thought that was just so terrible.
Really?
All this, I've got a wound in my heart. And she's like, We're all hurling.
Oh, that was a bit over
my
the top.
Goodness.
That
It was
a bit...
like Dallas-tastic.
Exactly, that's exactly
It
what I was going to say. That was
really-
like Dynasty Colby
It
style
was.
like emotion.
It's
but
terrible.
whether it's just the good emotion of Riker or actually the good acting of Jonathan Frakes, but his face, you could really see
Good actors.
that he
It's a
was
very
like upset.
fantastic script.
Oh, I
reckon.
I just think it was cute. I said to you today, when we watched this, I'm loving Riker a little bit more. This episode really made me laugh because I almost wanted them to bring back Thomas
Riker.
so they could do when Riker was picking up. Is it the Turnip Man? We'll call him Turnip Man because I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
I know what you've done. You've got outstanding warrants. You almost wanted them to bring back Thomas so they could do good cop, bad cop.
Good Riker, bad Riker.
Yeah, because Riker was really kind of like, I'm going to kick your ass.
And Thomas could come in and go,
and relax.
Don't upset him. Oh, you really don't want to make him angry.
I just think they missed a storyline there. They should have brought him back.
Yeah.
Definitely. Riker is defying advice from Data.
Yes.
Not
When he
to
says,
go down
"Don't
on
go
the
down,"
away
yeah.
crew. You would never let Picard do it. La la la. Riker's like, no, I'm doing it. And then what happens? He gets himself bloody phasered, and then they beam him off.
Beam him up. And you know what the thing is as well? So far we've had Picard beamed up, and now Riker's beamed up. I reckon Data's next, and then it's going to be like Troy and Crusher and Wolf. You're going to end up with Barclay in charge of the Enterprise,
But the thing
aren't you?
is, Wolf's face on that planet was just like, shit! What the fuck is happening?
He's lost
I'm
two
chief of security, and they're
he's
gone.
lost two commanders.
They're gone.
He's out of a job.
The big reveal happens. Picard's not dead. Yay! We knew that was the case. There's no way that he'd be dead.
But Riker, when he looked round, he was like this. He was like, it's you!
Exactly.
What has happened to Riker's poker face?
Well, exactly. And
All
at that
them
point,
years of playing poker, and his face should have gone, okay, we know that you know him.
at this point in my head, and I did sing this to you, all I could hear was Lady Gaga going, can't read man, no, he can read my poker face.
That was a bad enough
Picard,
Riker.
When Picard and Riker was in that room, he just said, what the fuck are you giving me away for? Don't like, I'm here, Will, I'm here.
Yes, and talking about the group that have kidnapped Picard,
The mercenaries.
They're the right hair bear bunch, aren't they? It's like whoever's got the best hair is in charge. I don't know why they've got Picard because he must be the lowest of the low.
Exactly. You had someone from like Monkey, didn't you? You had something like Skunko Man, and then you got a bloody Romulan who's like precision cut.
The bowl cut, and
just-
Picard. No wonder they don't trust him.
But that's why they like Riker, you see, because he's all coiffured.
The beard.
Isn't it?
Yes.
He's a hair bear man.
So it was a good episode so far, part one.
I quite enjoyed that.
Interesting stuff,
Yes,
yeah.
I
This is the excitement you saying last time you wanted.
absolutely.
You
I
got
will
some
finish
excitement.
where I started this feedback and go, oh, what is going to happen next?
Okay,
Are
let's
we
leave
going
it
to watch
there
it?
then.
Yes. Here's to part 2. Thank you.
Bye.
The hair bear bunch.
Here come the bears.
Here come the bears.
Here come the bears. Let's split. Help! It's the Hair Bear Bunch.
I still prefer the Mullet mercenaries personally, but you can see how clearly the ranking system is according to the quality of your hairdo. So
yeah. So that gloomy man must have been really pleased when Picard appeared. Galen, because it was going to be somebody below him now.
They weren't so keen on the Riker Troy scene. Interestingly, too Dallas-tastic for them apparently.
Yeah. I did like it though. And good point, actually. Worf, as security chief, has lost 2 captains. He's out of a job. Yeah.
And the squealy cliffhanger of Squee.
Yes.
There we go. We said it was good. Some folk have done feedback for both parts together. So let's go and listen to part 2. We'll go watch part 2.
Even, yes. With more beer.
Let's go and watch part 2.
Picard and Riker turn traitor.
I've had a change of profession.
And join a renegade ship of mercenaries.
It is time that we had a new commander.
In assembling one of the most devastating weapons ever conceived.
This is the power of the mind.
But how far will they go in this deadly game?
Kill him. Is he dead?
Yes.
Next time on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
So that trailer wasn't as bad.
No.
But it's still not brilliant.
Baran's ship does minimal damage due to Picard being the man pushing the buttons. Data plays along, cutting power on several decks and taking the inertial dampeners offline. The Enterprise returns fire, but with minimal strength, just enough to persuade Baran to run for it. Worf is still clearly not enjoying working under Data's command. It's probably all that gyp the android's given him up until this story.
But also, I mean, Data's response to things is to be analytical and to take time to think. And Worf's response, natural response as a Klingon, is fight, 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 fight! So, you know, he's a Klingon, you can kind of understand it, really.
Geordi discovers a hidden code in Riker's transmission, and Data goes to work decrypting it. Yarek, the engineer, gives a repair estimate of 5 hours, and Baran gives him 5 to do it in. Do you think he follows Scotty's technique of overestimating repair times to keep his captain happy?
Well, with that pain thingy, probably.
Picard gives Riker more gyp, and number 1 decks him.
Oh, yeah, I like it, because it's like he gets his own back.
Talera tries to get to the bottom of why Galen failed to zap the Enterprise, and why he's constantly arguing with Riker. Then they get a positive match for one of the archaeology samples. Baran tells Riker he'll get rid of Galen the moment he finds the last item they're searching for, and he offers the commander a job on his ship. Data has isolated Baran's flight plan in the encrypted info, and when Geordi tells him they can get there quicker, the android utters the immortal line, "Make it so."
Like it.
Huffily, Worf grumbles, "Finally." Data calls him through to the ready room and bawls him out over his performance as first officer. Hang on a minute, Worf's first officer? Since when was Worf next in command? Geordi, Crusher and even Troy technically outrank him. Oh, okay, Troy hasn't taken the command exams, but Crusher even commanded the ship a few stories ago. And very competently as well. So why is Worf ended up as first officer? Bizarre.
I'm guessing it's because he is part of the bridge crew where Crusher isn't.
You could argue that, although Geordi's there quite a bit and he acted as number 1 to Picard in Descent.
Yeah, but Data, because he was second officer, got made captain, is entitled to choose his own first officer. And I'm guessing he wanted Geordi to remain in engineering. And
he's not in engineering, he's on the bridge.
Well,
doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, the only argument you could have is, well, perhaps Geordi and Crusher are more involved in their duties, which would be logical, I suppose. But then again, Worf's still standing at Tactical. Why has he not got somebody else to stand in for him at Tactical whilst he acts as number 1?
I don't know. I can explain Crusher. I'm not convinced I can explain the rest.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I'm not.
Data threatens to replace Worf with Geordi, but kindly, if stupidly, says he will not enter it into Worf's record. I mean, you know, if Worf's not up to the job, actually, people need to know that. Anyway, it ends rather sweetly, this scene.
Mr. Worf, I am sorry if I have ended our friendship.
Sir, it is I who has jeopardized our friendship, not you. If you will overlook this incident, I would like to continue to consider you my friend.
I would like that as well.
Thank you, sir.
I like it. I mean, I think Data is really good
Yeah.
in giving Worf a dressing down. As an emotionless android, he's clearly picked up how to, how to discipline, if you see what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And he uses the right sort of tone of voice to give Worf a dressing down without humiliating him. I'm making it clear. But actually, I think that Data's following Picard's, as distinct from Jellicoe's, example in this, and giving people a second chance and a chance to realise they've made a mistake before doing anything irrevocable. Hence the offer, I wouldn't enter it in your record, it would just be a transfer, because that's the sort of thing Picard would do. Mm-hmm. And I think Data is modelling himself on Picard. Hence make it so.
And hence doing the Picard manoeuvre with his uniform as well as Worf leaves. Yes.
So I think that's what he's doing. Mm-hmm. As to why Data chose Worf over Geordi, I suppose you could argue he didn't want to place his best friend in jeopardy, given that the first officer usually leads away teams. I'm not sure, and we're not given the background on that, but we know from previous episodes that whoever ends up as captain or acting captain is entitled to promote whoever they choose. Mm-hmm. And so Data has chosen Worf.
Riker goes to see Picard and tells him that Baran has asked him to organise a mutiny to discover who's on Galen's side. Apparently they're due to rendezvous with a Klingon ship to take on board the second artefact. And Picard points out that they're not Romulan, but Vulcan in origin.
Which fits with the fact that the Romulan has been using the phrase logical a lot.
Mm-hmm. Picard begins to start the mutiny, but Narek refuses to follow him, preferring Talera as replacement captain. She turns up, asking who Picard really is. She's found the captain's message. She admits to actually being T'Pol, a member of Vulcan security, investigating a Vulcan isolationist group. The Vulcan UKIP, effectively.
Yep.
Here we go again, eh? It was somebody peeking at Deep Space Nine scripts, because first we had the Circle and now this.
Yeah.
Hey-ho. Anyway, they're after the artefacts which date from the golden olden Vulcan days when they used their telepathy as a weapon. And one such weapon was the Stone of Gaul. Yes, it's named after the mountain plateau where Spock studied in the motion picture.
Okay.
On the Enterprise, Worf is now in the first officer's chair, rather more logically. They pick up a Klingon Turan-class shuttlecraft. Guess what it is? Yes, it's the Ninibek, redressed yet again.
Is it? It just looks like a box to me.
Yeah, well, that's basically what the model is a box, but they redress it every time they use it as a shuttlecraft that isn't a Federation one. They hail a not very talkative Klingon called Corral, who rebuffs all Data's questions with a simple no, then cuts him off entirely. Troy's long-distance empathic powers have picked up that he's worried and a little scared, which doesn't seem very Klingon. Worf suggests tractoring in Corral's ship, but Data points out that it contravenes the Federation Klingon treaty. Wily Worf then suggests a more legal elfin safety inspection, which Data agrees to.
Oh, the irony of the Enterprise doing a health and safety inspection.
Exactly.
Oh.
Troy gives the android a look that says, "Really?
Yeah.
Really? You're going to go ahead with this?" Corral barely fits through the exit of his shuttle.
Yeah.
His knees must have been tucked up under his chin inside that small shuttlecraft. He's played by 6'9" basketball star James Worthy, who was cast as a result of meeting Garon, aka Robert O'Reilly, on a plane journey, who suggested he asked for a role. Even Worf looks tiny in comparison.
He does.
Later on, we see Corral stood next to Troy, and it looks like she could give him a blowjob without bending over. We also get Crusher at her most patronising, which is surely very unwise considering this Klingon size. Turns out that Corral got a message off to Baran saying he's been detained. The mercenary leader talks about boarding the Enterprise. Galen basically says, "You and whose army?"
Yeah.
Of course, Enterprise security's never been that good, so they don't have to worry. Riker says he can get them on board and liberate the artifact. Things are not going well with Corral, who empties his glass of blood wine on the floor. Meanwhile, Crusher has found nothing on his shuttle, so Worf suggests downloading Corral's computer memory. The Doctor doesn't like that idea. She's worried she'll find Klingon porn or something. Plus, it's hardly justified under a health and safety inspection, unless they're worried that Corral will go blind. Then Riker and co turn up and start blasting. When he's got the location of Corral from Crusher, the commander stuns her and Worf, which is a bit brutal.
Yeah, but he's got to keep in character.
Then the pirates beam to the observation lounge, where Galen relieves Corral of the second artifact. Riker goes to zap the captain, but Picard is the better shot. Troy confirms the commander is dead, but when Galen and the others beam out, she admits he's alright, really.
Yep.
Galen gives Bran the artifact, then decks him.
Like
Everybody's turning on everybody, it's wonderful. The crew mutiny. Bran threatens Galen with his pain device, but it kills him instead, since Picard changed transponder codes.
He reversed the polarity of the neutron flow.
Yeah, well, how did he do that? It's not a very secure system, this, if he was able to do that so easily. Anyway, Picard takes command. Riker is back in charge of the Enterprise, meanwhile, and he's hailed by a Vulcan security minister. Turns out that T'Pol isn't on their payroll, though. Picard goes through Baran's log and discovers that they're due to deliver the artifacts to Vulcan. He lets slip that he asked Riker to warn the Vulcans of their arrival. How did he do that when he didn't know that's where they were going to deliver the artifact until just now? Doesn't make any sense.
Well, he'd already worked out, hadn't he, that it was a Vulcan artifact, so therefore it made sense to go to Vulcan.
Yeah. T'Pol, or whatever her name is at this point, realises that puts her rather in the shit, since she's not a legit Vulcan security person. And Picard smells a rat when she gives very evasive answers. Before beaming her down, he demands the return of one of the artifacts until they've received payment in full. T'Pol reveals the existence of Picard's message to the Enterprise to the pirates, and Picard responds by revealing the Vulcans' plan to rip off the Mullet mercenaries. Vakor and Narek decide they're beaming down with T'Pol and Picard to make sure they get paid. They beam down to a very groovy-looking Vulcan temple, but discover less than half the payment they were expecting. T'Pol assembles her mind gun and zaps her crewmates, seemingly turning them into Odo. I mean, it's bizarre. They use exactly the same shape-changing effect as the blast from the gun. I mean, they could at least just change the colour or something, but it's exactly the same colour as well. Then she turns the weapon on Picard. Riker and Worf beam down with an away team. Picard tells them to drop their weapons as the weapon only works on angry people. Okay, that's a useful weapon then. T'Pol acts very angry for a Vulcan herself, and Picard disarms her. She makes a much better Romulan than she does a Vulcan, ironically. Nice scene where Riker points out that Picard cannot give orders as he's been declared dead, and then Data points out that Riker can't either as he's facing a court-martial and escorts him to the brig. So ultimately, it's not bad for a two-parter. The second part isn't that massive, sometimes they're a bit of disappointment, but it's pretty good.
No, it was only disappointing for me because the moment whatever her name was said she
T'Pol
was a member of Vulcan security, I suddenly remembered she wasn't really.
Mm-hmm.
And because I remembered that, it did lose some of the shine.
But that's quite late on in the day, so that's pretty good.
It is, but what gets me, though, is I can understand archaeology saving the day in the sense that Picard recognises the third piece and understands that, therefore, the psionic resonator amplifies negative emotions. So if you don't have negative emotions, it won't work on you. But how is a Klingon going to think happy thoughts?
Well, he managed it.
She actually aims it at Worf.
Yeah, and Worf's like, I'm really peaceful, dude.
What is he? Because, if they aimed it at Troy, she could be thinking of chocolate. If they aimed it at Picard, he could be thinking about riding his horse. Do you know what I mean? Riker could be was probably thinking about his porn, but or he could be thinking about playing the trombone. With all the other characters, you can think of something non-violent and happy. Find a happy place, find a happy place, but not Worf.
Yeah,
really.
just saying drop your weapons doesn't necessarily mean that they're not a seething, boiling amount of anger, which Worf is generally.
Yeah, and him and Picard explaining, it works on anger. Don't be angry.
Yeah, the MacGuffin doesn't work ultimately, does it? Really?
No, it's Worf is a Klingon, ergo he's angry. Surely.
Writer Ronald D. Moore felt they ran out of story in part 2, but I'm not sure I agree, actually. There wasn't any sort of long, slow scenes. There was lots of intrigue still. And it was all in all, I thought it was a nice conclusion to a knockabout adventure. I mean, nothing profound. It's not, going to be rated as one of the greatest Star Trek stories ever, but it was quite fun. Lots of action. Wouldn't want it every week, but the downside, better than the previous episodes we've had this season.
It was generally enjoyable. I'm not sure they necessarily ran out of ideas, but I'm not sure they really thought this psionic resonator through, given that Worf was one of the ones who beamed down.
Mm-hmm. So, we've heard from Cheeky Monkey Gin. Dearest Orcs, I used to think that this was quite a memorable episode containing some striking characters along with the regular crew. Convinced I was that Servalan plays a major role in this one, along with a high camp character called Krantor. No Clute. No scary old woman in black bathing suit and fishnet stockings. And where was the Atari chess game? Oh well, I'm not getting any younger. Maybe the memory is already going. Cue No Memory by Scarlet Fantastic. Well, I had to squeeze an 80s track in somehow. Take care, Cheeky Monkey Gin. Yes, he was thinking of Gambit from Blake 7.
Oh, the one with the clit in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we heard from The Mark.
And The Mark writes, Gambit Part 1, or No Social Media in Space, and Gambit Part 2, or 7 Years, One Punch. Riker, Commander. Right, okay, let's check this guy out. Save the Federation from the Borg. XO on the flagship, and the captain is, Oi, Galen, we need to have a chat. Thank God Starfleet has no social media, or this would have ended badly from the off. Talera in my head canon is Savik, having seen the death of her human love turning her bitter over 80 odd years. Gambit is a two-parter that lives or dies on plot execution and twists and turns. There's really not much else to it. The characters exist to drive the action, and there are no larger themes to consider, Trekkian or otherwise. My most significant thought, inspired by Gambit, is that when you consider Star Trek back in the original series days, where space was like an untamed frontier, and then consider it again in the latter Next Generation days, where 6+ seasons of universe creation has built something familiar and recognisable, then Rogue Mercenaries seem almost oddly out of place and novel. Our heroes have been at the edge of known space, and from time to time the core worlds, they are on the frontier, populated by rogues, renegades and characters on Deep Space Nine. Okay, some payoffs that fall flat, the key one being the death of Baran, who's conned into killing himself with his own power-wielding control device. It should be a deliciously ironic moment, but it's a disappointment. But there are great moments too. Data's second go at command nails it, and Worf's growth as an XO. I also loved watching Riker catch on. The acting on TNG is not always up to snuff, but there are certain moments when they inhabit their characters very well. Then we come to the punching. Riker and Picard punch each other right in the face. Riker, in the back of his mind, is screaming, 7 years! I've waited 7 goddamn years for this! I loved the Vulcan weapon reveal at the end. The whole thing coming down to Picard outthinking Savick. I also loved the ending scene. I always imagined Riker screaming Data's name in that final shot as the ship flies away and Data hauls Riker into the brig. One last thought. Picard is declared dead and the Enterprise is, at first, sent on another assignment. But Riker isn't promoted, and there's no talk of the Enterprise getting a new captain. I think that undercuts the drama because it sort of makes it feel like Picard might still pop up. Also, it's inconsistent with Starfleet's actions in the Best of Both Worlds, where Riker got a field promotion, and Chain of Command, both two-part stories like this, where Jellicoe's made captain simply because Picard is assigned to a special op. Even a line of dialogue in the scene with Riker and the Admiral, we're still sorting out what to do with the captaincy, would have done the trick. But still enjoyable after all these years.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen Jellicoe turn up. That would have been good.
Yes, definitely. But that's because Jellicoe kicks ass.
He does.
Okay.
I guess the in-universe explanation is Riker's conversation with the Admiral, where they say, yeah, you're right, you're on detached assignment.
Mm-hmm.
But I still would have preferred Jellicoe.
Yeah. Let's hear what Wayne and Merlin made of Gambit.
Hello, Orgs. Wayne and Merlin on a rather surprisingly and lovely sunny afternoon in the park. Here to talk about Gambit Parts 1 and 2. I enjoyed this one. It was a nice start, taking the crew out of Starfleet and putting them in civvies. I felt it was a fun romp altogether, but not a story that deserved 2 parts, really. It was a bit flabby, and I think it would have been much sharper as one episode. Probably one of the standout scenes from this episode was the protracted phaser fight, which was good fun, even if nobody could hit anything, even when it was 6 feet in front of them in the open. But I did wonder why exactly they beamed Riker up with them. Why not just kill him or just leave him there? The trouble with that is because we ended up with Riker and Picard both on the pirate ship when really it should have just been Picard. I just felt a little clunky, really, having both of them. The other thing is I thought Picard trusted Savick far too easily. I can't remember her name, I'll call her Savick. The first thing I thought when she revealed herself as Vulcan Secret Service was that she was just trying to get him to admit who he really was. So the fact that he sort of told her straight away just seemed uncharacteristically gullible of Picard, really. I did like the idea of a logically justified racist or isolationist Vulcan sect, but the idea of an ancient super weapon was a bit yawnsome. I think it's a fun story, this one. It doesn't really do anything wrong, but it's the third story of Season 7 that just feels like we've seen it all before. I'm really starting to get a sense of why the powers that be felt it was time to bring things to a close. Anyways, that's all for now. We'll be back next time to talk about the next episodes of DS9 and TNG. Talk to you then. Bye now.
Bye. It was interesting that Wayne felt it was a bit flabby as well. I must admit, I didn't feel that, because it just seemed to romp along, really. There wasn't any sort of long talky scenes. It all seemed... And when there were talky scenes, it was all intrigue, so...
I didn't feel it was flabby, but actually at the time I did think that Picard was gullible.
Yeah.
That's a fair point, I think.
Naive, certainly. Let's find out what Drew and Tracy made of Part 2. See if Tracy is still squeeing.
or part 2 of our feedback for Gambit, part 2.
Absolutely. What was that?
What do you mean?
Well, I was very excited and kind of enthralled, engaged with the first episode, but this one really kind of let me down after a while, I'm afraid.
I do think it's a little bit dragged out and boring.
Oh, I don't know. You know, Data knew the score, what was going on with Riker. But they just, it just every kind of time they had like a key part, they kind of seemed to kind of sidetrack and let themselves down. It was just like, this episode didn't have the engagement and the excitement that it should have had.
Anyhow, let's talk about points.
Points, yes. 1, Worf completely had my respect in this episode. You know, it was absolutely clear that he was not
from the earlier episode
likey.
And this, he keeps giving these snotty eyes.
He's not snotty eyes, but he's completely like, Data is in charge. I don't agree with what you're doing, but I respect you as a commanding officer, and I'm going to agree with what you say. And that just shows the absolute humanity of Worf. Because
Klingonanity.
Yeah, because he's I guess, he's going against his natural instinct.
With this thing, I think,
to respect a commanding officer, and
Klingons are really emotional, like they basically led by their anger, and Data is obviously completely run by logic.
Yeah.
So they're at different ends of the spectrum, but what a great scene that was when Data took him into his room and said, you're. And he said, you've been calling me out, and Wolf said, oh, well, I've always done that. And he said, but not in a position of first officer.
Yeah, as security.
That's brilliant.
Brilliant. It was a very emotional episode, but Data doesn't portray emotion, so would he pick up on the fact that actually...
Yeah, but he was just picking him up on that he kept, disagreeing and all that. It's great.
I just also think, though, that Picard would always want somebody as his right-hand man to kind of disagree and put a challenge in there, not someone who's always going to go...
It's a second in command. He's calling him out on it. And I think this is the good thing about Picard.
But he did call him out on it.
Riker will say, I don't wish you to do that, and he'll say, you know what, you're right, let's go with your plan. That's a good second in command.
Yeah, but
listen to your...
commanding officer, but there is also the kind of thing, no, that's what I've said, make it so.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Whenever Picard says make it so, Picard...
Data's right. When he says, I've made a decision, so to interrupt you, when Data says, I've made a decision, you support that decision. That's the thing.
Exactly.
And that's what Wolf wasn't getting.
Exactly, and the point I was just about to make is when Picard says, make it so, Riker's like, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
No challenge.
Anyway, great scene.
When Riker socks Picard... we did chuckle because it was like, in the next episode, you're going to see Picard take Riker into his ready room and go, that little instant we had, right?
in Gambit Part 2.
We're now back on the Enterprise, and for that, you're going to have 2 weeks on toilet duty. Don't fucking do that again, you bitch, because I'm in charge. You might have had your moment to sock me one, but it ain't happening again. The 80s dude, monkey throwback.
Hairbear bunch.
He was a double-crossing, backstabbing git shit, wasn't he?
Well, hold on, if you want to talk about that, what about the Vulcan lady?
Yeah, okay.
Let's
not even go there. We kind of defended her at first, and I called her a Romulan.
Yeah, she looks like a Romulan.
Yeah, because I thought she was a baddie, but actually she's a Vulcan bitch.
She was a baddie.
Bitch.
She was a baddie in the end of it. Yeah, it's like double-crossing on double-crossing.
For me, this was like... it was a right shit end to what started out to be a great episode. I really enjoyed the first episode. I kind of lost the plot towards this one. It didn't follow up. It was a bit poor. Didn't enjoy it. I'm sorry.
I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't say poor. But I'd say...
compared to the first episode, this was a bad ender.
No, I wouldn't say bad ender, but I enjoyed the second part, but... yeah, not as good as the first one.
No.
It's the rule of 2-parters, isn't it? The first part's great, second part, not so great.
Well, let's see to the next one then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Oh dear, another one disappointed. Oh dear.
I like the idea of Riker on toilet duty.
Wouldn't be able to sit on that properly either.
No, he wouldn't. Oh, he'd bloody spray everywhere, wouldn't
he? Oh, no. That doesn't bad thinking about Riker on the toilet. Number one everywhere. Anyway. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
That's fine. What Purry made in a part 2.
Hello again, Purry here to talk about Gambit Part 2, where we see the thrilling conclusion that, yeah, the beams weren't damaging the Enterprise as we kind of worked out in Part 1. Part 2 is a little weaker, but actually not too bad. Like I say, the story kind of rattles along quite well. I was quite surprised that the space pirates had managed to assault the Enterprise so easily to sort of capture the Klingon. I did, however, I loved the scene of them, of Worf suggesting ways, once Data had his heart-to-heart with Worf suggesting ways that they can impound the Klingon shuttle and using health and safety. I thought that was brilliant. Just, we're going to do a health and safety inspection on your shuttle. I thought that was awesome. Health and safety, saving lives again. In your face, Richard Littlejohn. And so, and it is quite a funny scene, Data trying to be polite and having tea while Beverly's scanning the shuttle, and then, yes, they get attacked, but that's when they get Riker back, so, the thing kind of, I like the idea of the Vulcan psychic weapon. I know this is kind of adding yet more mysterious psychic powers to the Vulcan, but they were a partly psychic, although telepathic race. It is conceivable that they could find ways to amplify it, even though it does appear to be through a bunch of rocks. I'm guessing there is some technology in that last component. But I did quite like the idea of the sort of psychic amplifier, and indeed I liked the idea that when they started using weapons of that's one of the things that moved the Vulcans towards embracing logic, because the weapons could be defeated by being peaceful. Again, it's a bit hokey at the end, think happy thoughts and the weapon doesn't work, but I think it actually hangs together quite well. Some things I possibly missed in the first one, I did notice in some of the shots that, yes, it's the bridge of the pirate ship is a redress of the battle bridge, but it's actually done very well. You only notice it when you see the view screen, basically. The other thing I was initially thinking in the first episode, sorry, this is probably going a bit stream of consciousness, I'm really talking about part 1, but the thing I noticed about the first episode, initially I was kind of griping about why they need an archaeologist, because what Picard's doing looks awfully like the sort of thing you get like a student to do, put thing in the machine and computer says yea or nay, but they do actually clarify it. It's quite well done. They do clarify that he's improved the scanning technique, and he's obviously doing something to make it a lot quicker. But, and obviously Robin Curtis turns out to be a Vulcan separatist. And again, it's one of those bits that's a little bit frustrating about the episode, is that there's these good ideas lurking in it as well that you think should have maybe been expanded their own. Like the idea of Vulcan separatists is good, although the fact that we only see one of them does make you wonder, and leaves obviously over the joke that she is the Vulcan separatist. She is a Vulcan separatist movement one. She's the Popular Front of Judea. And that's kind of the downsides of it. Like I say, the psychic amplifier weapon made of stone is a bit weird, but, like I say, the top bit looked like it was made of something else, and I suppose you could say weird rocks that resonate with psychic frequency or something if you were going to technobabble it. But overall, again, there's some decent action in it, there's some good rollicking, some good rollicking sequences. Again, Patrick Stewart's still enjoying playing Space Bastard, which is fun, and you do have sort of the mutiny that's, that gets run against the pirate commander eventually. Overall there's a lot to like. There is actually a comedy ending which I wish went the way I thought it was, where Picard says, well, since I'm dead I'm going to bed, and says, oh, and Riker, you're technically still a fugitive and sort of traitor, and you've got the sort of Data taking Riker away to the bridge jokingly at the end. I like the idea that this is Data's play for power. Picard's dead, Riker's in the brig, it's Data's ship now, and to next week we are going to see the adventures of Captain Data. Obviously that doesn't happen. But overall, it's never going to be anyone's favourite two-parter. It's not got enough in it. It's quite insubstantial, but it's good fun. I did enjoy Gambit. I thought some good action, but yes, maybe a bit brainless. Actually quite a good two-parter. Maybe it's just showing up good because we've had some very bland episodes recently, and just to have a bit of colourful excitement is quite fun. Apparently, I did read Gene Roddenberry hated the idea of space pirates and actually the no space pirates rule. Come on, Gene! Space pirates are awesome! They should have gone all out with the big hats and like a robot parrot and stuff. I'd have really loved that. I think they were holding back a little on the Space Pirates just to, I think, keep Gene's memories. Which is a shame. I hope at some point we will get Star Trek back on the telly and we'll get some proper Space Pirates, robot parrots and a lightsaber hook and that sort of thing. But I can but dream. So anyway, I'm way over time. All it remains for me to say is do keep up the good work, guys. It's a very good podcast, and I will talk to you about the next 2 episodes. Until then, bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Robot parrot just made me think of Pirate Planet.
Yes. Doctor Who did Space Pirates a bit better, didn't it? Yar.
Mr. Fibbly.
Mr. Fibbly, indeed. Yes. Yeah, it is a bit hokey at the end. I grant you that, and the whole thing about the stone thingy. Yeah, it's just MacGuffin, isn't it? But let's face it, Enterprise security has always been shit. So the fact that the pirates can beam aboard and nick the stuff is not at all surprising.
No. And I like the idea that she is the popular front of Judea. I do like that.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. You don't get to see any co-conspirators. It's just her, and she's just like kind of frustrated at the end. It seems a bit odd, but there you go. And she seems far too angry to be a Vulcan still. I'm sorry. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you to everybody who contributed. Much appreciated. Next time we shall be covering on Wednesday, the 1st of April. So we'll be recording in the evening as usual. So no April Fools from us. We'll be covering Deep Space Nine episode Invasive Procedures.
Oh, that's an awesome episode.
Yes, that's one that does stick in the memory, so that's a splendid one, I seem to remember. And then not so awesome Next Generation episode, Phantasms, in which Data has nightmares. I think this is the Troy Cake episode.
Oh, that one.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
Bet you'd like some Troy Cake.
I'm saying nothing. I'm keeping my powder dry until the next one. Well, the only thing that would beat Troy Cake would be Troy Pie. Pie. Anyway. Just a quick plug. We recently appeared on the Black Dog podcast, covering Star Trek 6 in all its glory.
Yeah, I mostly squeed.
Yes, it's rather more glory than the last time we appeared on it for the motion picture, let's face it.
Yeah.
Although it is very amusing that they've got one person, one of their regulars, isn't a Star Trek fan, and he was just completely bemused by it all. It was quite good. But yes, we'll catch you on Wednesday the 1st, when we'll next be recording. Until then, take care. Cheery bye.
Bye-bye. The bOrgCast is brought to you by the lovely people at GeekPlanetOnline.com.
Music at the beginning of this podcast was written and performed by Adam Buxton and is used with his kind permission. All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only and no copyright infringement is intended.
To contact us, you can use the forums at GeekPlanetOnline.com.
Visit our Tumblr site at bOrgCast.tumblr.com where you'll find images accompanying the episodes discussed in this cast.
Send email messages or MP3s to bOrgCast@GeekPlanetOnline.com.
Or you can contact us via Twitter on rev_org or bOrgCastAmmo. #bOrgCast.
Posse have their say. She's in the song list.